Okay. If you're a SAC member, you probably already know about these events, but and if you're not, I encourage you to become a SAC member because there are certain benefits to it. The genre series is on July 20th, and it's from 7 to 8:30. The what do you call it? The theme is humorous and laughing stories, and I think we can all use those. So that might be fun to really dip into. The genre storytelling is free to any SAC member. So if you're enjoying a lot of the things that SAC does, you might want to think about, if you aren't already becoming a member, become a member, because there are a lot of things that they offer. And by the time if you go to the genre too much, you will have it paid for anyway. So that might be something to think about. And then in August, they'll be doing personal stories. And in September, they'll be doing folk tales. So they have a good subject lineup coming up really in the next couple of months. And then this weekend, July 16th, is the San Francisco Folk Festival. And it's virtual again. I don't know if, Katie, do you know if it's going in person too, or is it just virtually? Just virtually. This is always a really fun event, and they'll be doing sessions. They'll be doing a general telling at the very beginning, and then they're going to have some Northern California tellers and some Southern California tellers, so we can hear different people. And then at 4 o'clock, they'll be having a woman who presents storytelling in schools, which might be of big interest also. So those two events are coming up, and I think it'll be a lot of fun to take a look and see. And hey, you don't have to drive down to the city or anything. We can just do it from here. So take a look at anything else you might find will be on that SAC website. So check it out, and you'll find a lot of storytelling going on this summer.
Meg,
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just trying to. Brandon, he, for the National Storytelling Network, he is writing I think a monthly column. It's called Swap Light. And it's coming out on July the 15th. And I'm going to send Meg the link to this because he wrote about the Do Tell Story Swap for the first one. So yeah.
That'll be cool. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. They're sort of highlighting different swap groups and what they're doing and their history.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to, Meg, were there any other announcements?
No, that's all I've got for today.
Okay.
I have to, Katie.
Yes.
I have to show you the pie.
Oh, yes. Yes. So please send us a piece.
I know it. That's what we need. It's the most beautiful pie I've ever made.
Oh, it is.
It's peach and plum. And
gorgeous.
The recipe is a Jacques Pepin. So you can look it up.
Ooh.
It's a French tart. And you use a Cuisinart to make the crust. So the crust is peach cake.
Hey, Mina, can you show that once more?
Yeah.
It's like a galette. It's a tart, not a galette.
Yeah, it's a
galette.
Oh, beautiful. That looks nice.
It's not. Okay. It fluffy crust.
Oh, that's delicious.
It looks like it, but it's not. It's a very buttery crust, though. You only get to make this a couple times a year. Now is the time.
We'll all come to your house for the next swap, Vina.
Yes, let's do that.
We'll fly Sharon down and Pete up from Southern California. Okay, so I'm going to find young Meg. There you go. Okay. So you have the floor, Meg. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Way up the Mogollons among the mountaintops, a lion cleans a yearling's bones and licks his thankful chops. And who should come down the trail, a slipping down the slope, but high chin Bob of sinful pride and maverick hungry rope. Oh, glory be to me, says he, and fame's unfading flower. All meddling hands are far away. I got my top horse today, and I'm top rope on the crazy J. Hello, kitty cat, you're mine. That cat, he licked his paw so brown and dreamed sweet dreams of veal. And then that circling loop snaked down and grabbed him by his meal. He yelled so loud, he woke the world, and all the hills yelled back. That horse, he took a step and whirled, and Bob took up the slack. Oh, glory be to me, he says, and the glory trail is, and we're on the glory trail. No human man, as I have read, has ever looped a raging lion's head, and Haas has drugged that lion dead before we told the tale. Now, this is the beginning of a poem called The Glory Trail by Badger Clark. And it was published in Sand and Saddle Leather. And my father, when we went camping, he would always read us that poem in its entirety. And we all loved it. And I was recently looking through some papers and I found some stories that my father wrote. And it turns out that mountain lions figured in a couple of really interesting episodes of my father's young life. Well, in the 1930s, the federal government allowed grazing of cattle on an area of southern Arizona called the Santa Rita. And it was plains that led up to a very high mountain that actually just rose out of the desert in a really spectacular way. And the government had established a station on the Santa Rita Mountain for monitoring what was going on with this grazing. And my grandfather had moved the family up there to live on the station with other families who worked for the government. And his job was to go out into the range and record and catalog all of the native plants and all the regular plants and make sure that there was no overgrazing and that the native plants were given a chance to survive there. And so he would go out on horseback and stay a few days and then come back and do his paperwork. Well, my father, Tom, and my uncle, Fred was about 10, my father was about 5, and they loved living up there because it was a wonderland for boys. You can just imagine it was wide open, lots of places to run and have adventures. And that's what they did. Well, they were really interested in this whole business of camping because Dad went out and camped and they thought that they were old enough that they could camp too. And they wanted to camp by themselves. So they asked Dad if they could, their dad. And he said, oh, okay. He fixed them up with a pup tent and some old blankets. And he took them out about 100 feet from the house. And he showed them how to set up the tent and how to cut the pine boughs to lie down for a soft bed. And the boys were very excited. That night, they were going to get to spend the night by themselves out in the tent. Well, after supper, they hurried out to the tent and it was getting to be dusk and dark, crawled inside of the tent, and they started telling stories and jokes, and they felt so big, grown up, and independent. It was just a great feeling of being in a place where they had never been before, but they were really excited. But eventually their eyes grew heavy and the talk slowed down and the boys went to sleep. About midnight, they woke up. They could hear a creature snuffling around the edges of the tent. And they were sat straight up. What's that? I don't know. They listened to the night. Well, the creature decided there wasn't anything interesting, and so it moved off. And they began to listen to all the creatures of the night coming out and searching for their food and their mates and all the other things that animals do. And they heard an owl's call out into the night, and it was far away. And then again, they heard the owl, only this time he was right beside him. It sounded like he was right outside the tent. And you know, when an owl's that close, they sound really scary. So they just huddled in the tent, their eyes wide, trying to peer through the darkness to see what was going on. And then they heard a coyote up on a hillside calling out to his lady love on the other hillside. And they began to hear other sounds in the night that were just so strange to them. Well, they thought they were maybe beginning to understand what was going on when suddenly on the ridge about 100 yards away, they heard the scream of a mountain lion. That tent just exploded as those boys tore out of that tent and took giant leaps back to the house and collapsed, breathing hard on the kitchen floor. Well, their dad came in. What is all this ruckus? Why are you guys back here? What's going on? And so the boys told them of the sounds that they had heard, of the owl's scary voice, and of the coyotes calling to each other. But most of all, they said, Dad, there's a mountain lion up there, and it was screaming. And Dad just looked them in the eye and he said, boys, those animals call this area home too. They've been here longer than we have. They deserve your respect. And you are never to approach them. You are to give them respect and to never hurt them. You are here to take care of them instead. And my father and my Uncle Fred, they did pass that lesson on down to their children. And to this day, I believe that we all respect the wildlife. We try to keep our distance and to keep them safe as well as ourselves. Thank you.
Oh, Meg, that was wonderful. Thank you for that story. Beautifully told. Wow.
Good. Thank
Yeah, how scary that mountain. Oh.
you. Little boys have all the fun.
It just doesn't sound like too much fun with the mountain lion so close. Oh, great.
There is a second part to that story, or to the story about the mountain lions. So I will try to get that one tightened up for maybe next month.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
do that. Thank
Where
you.
did the poem come from?
I wondered that too.
There's a book called Sand and Saddle Leather, and it's an old book in our family. We've had it for a really long time. So that's where and my dad used to just always love to read that poem to us. And of course we loved it because it's a ballad and it's very dramatic. And I have memorized the whole thing from time, before and recited it, but it's kind of long. So I thought I'd just give you a little taste of the mountain lion there. But also, to be honest, you can find it online now. I don't know if you can find anything online, but this is one that you can. It's called The Glory Trail.
I'm going to go online and listen to a mountain lion scream. I want to hear that.
I know. Well, they do. Apparently, they have very few different voices. And, there's, in the other story, it says that the mountain lion, they could hear him snuffle along the ground, following a trail, a scent. And then the second voice was a little yowling, kind of mewling voice that they used to talk to each other. But the scream was the one that warned everybody they better get away. So it's interesting. We're very wild time out there, I think, in the 1930s.
You may have mountain lions up in Forestville. We do in the West County.
Yes, we do. Yes. And I think that's another thing that I find really charming about this particular poem is, we have our own mountain lions and we do need to respect them and keep our distance.
And actually, mountain lions cross Oakmont in their
Wow.
travels.
Yeah.
There was a big film done on the migration of the mountain lions in this area.
Yeah,
Wow.
we have them on the ridge, and sometimes I think we hear them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard one scream though?
Yeah, I think I had. I woke up one night and I didn't know what it was. I was really scared. Yeah, and somebody said to me, "Oh, it was probably a mountain lion."
Yeah.
Okay.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Mhm.
So, Sharon, are you ready?
I guess. I turned the sound way up so the kid could hear it. Is this too loud? Am I blasting you out?
No, that's perfect.
Okay. This is. The little old woman woke up one morning with a terrific craving. She wanted an apple dumpling. So she ran down to the kitchen and saw that she had butter and flour and sugar and cinnamon, but she didn't have any apples. What she had was plums. The plum tree on her backyard was full of ripe plums. But as you and I know, you can't make an apple dumpling with plums. And so she thought, well, maybe if I took a batch of these plums in a basket and went down the road, I could find somebody who would trade me for apples. So she loaded up the plums and set off down the road. At the first house she came to, it was a poultry farm. The woman had ducks and geese and chickens. And when that farmer saw those plums, she said, "Oh, I would love to have those plums." And the little old woman said, "Do you have any apples to trade?" And the woman said, "Well, no. What I have is feathers. I have a lot of feathers. And I would love to trade for those plums." So the little old woman said, "That will do. Let me see if I can do something with these feathers." And she set off down the road again. She hadn't gone long when she heard an argument, and the man's voice was saying, "Straw, definitely straw." And the woman's voice was saying, "No, no, no, cotton." And when they noticed the little old woman approaching, the man said, "Maybe you can solve an argument for us. We're getting ready to stuff some pillows, and I'm pretty sure we should do it with straw, but she thinks it would be better with cotton." And the little old woman said, "I might have something that would be better yet. I have all these feathers." And they both went, "Oh, perfect. Why didn't we think of that? Do you have any apples?" No, we don't have apples. What we have is flowers." So she went around behind the house on their property, and there was a huge field full of flowers of every color. And so she had a good time picking flowers of every different kind of bloom and blossom and putting them into her basket till she had a wonderful bouquet. And she kept walking. This time, as she walked along, she came upon a young man going in the same direction as she, but his head was down and his shoulders were slumped, and he looked so gloomy that as she caught up with him, she said, "What in the world is the matter?" And he said, "Oh, I'm in a terrible fix. I'm on my way to visit my girlfriend, and I had some chocolates to bring to her, and I tripped and dropped them into the water, and they were all ruined. And now I have nothing to give this girl." And the little old woman said, "I bet I could help with that." So she opened the basket and handed him the bouquet, and he said, "Oh, perfect, thank you so much." And he picked up his pace and went down the road way ahead of her. But a couple of minutes later, he turned around and came back and he said, I want to give you something. Thank you for what you've done for me. And she said, and he said, here, take this. And it was a golden coin. And she said, that's way too much. And the flowers are not worth that. And he said, but it's what I have and I want to give it to you. Please accept it. So she said, all right, and took the golden coin and put it in her basket and kept walking. And pretty soon she came to a house where a woman was standing on the doorstep with a baby in her arms and little children around her legs. And she looked so worried that the little old woman said, what's wrong? Are you waiting for something? And the woman said, oh, yes, my husband went hunting. It's been days now, and he hasn't come back, and I don't have anything to feed these children with. And the little old woman said, well, I can help with that. So she took out the gold coin and gave it to the woman, who was so grateful. And she said, but I have nothing to give you in return. And the woman said, I'm just glad I was able to help. And she went on down the road. But she hadn't gone very far when she heard footsteps behind her. And when she looked back, it was the children from that household carrying a puppy. And they said, Mom said, you can have one of our puppies to thank you for giving us the coin. And she said, oh, that's perfect. Thank you very much. And so she put the puppy in her basket and kept walking, thinking, this is nice, but none of it is getting me any closer to my apple dumpling. And she kept walking and walking with the puppy until she came upon a house where an old man was sitting on a rocker in the porch, rocking back and forth. And he looked gloomy. And when he saw her, he said, hello, would you stop and talk with me? I'm so lonely here. Since my wife died, it's really lonesome. And she said, I think I can help with that. And she opened the basket and the puppy jumped out and ran up to the man. And they were so happy to see each other that they were instant friends. And he said, is there anything I can do for you in return? And she said, I'm afraid not. I have spent all day long trying to find apples. And he said, well, I have apples. I have an apple tree in the backyard, and you're welcome to take all the apples that you want. So she took her basket and went around and found the most beautiful apples and took them home. And when she got back home, she took out the butter and the flour and the sugar and the cinnamon, and she made a wonderful dough like mine is. And she rolled it up around that apple and she put it in the oven to bake. And when it was done, she took it out and ate it. And she thought it was the sweetest thing in the world, except for the wonderful adventure she had had that day. I didn't like so.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Sharon. Beautifully told. Really nice. Yeah, what with your apple dumpling and vinous pie. Very hungry making. Oh, thank you, thank you. So does anybody have a story they would like to tell?
I have a story I wish Elaine would tell.
Oh,
What's that?
Does that count?
yes.
Sure. What story is that?
Because I would like my grandchild to hear the story that you tell about, I don't know how to tell it without giving away the ending. It has to do with a coyote getting his tail caught.
Oh, Señor Coyote y los Perros, Mr. Coyote and the Dogs.
Yes.
Oh, sure. I'd be happy to tell that tale. That's
Oh,
my big
yay.
sister story. Okay. Señor Coyote lived in a big, beautiful valley with two large mountain ranges. One morning he awoke. He walked out and went, ah, what a beautiful day. What should I do with this day? Oh, I don't know. I have to think. And at that, he started walking and thinking. He said, oh, I go chase those little rabbits. I love rabbits. Yeah. Oh, no, I have to think some more. Let me think. And at that, he kept walking. I know. I go fishing. I catch those little fishies. I love those little fishies. Yeah. No, I have to think some more. Well, before he'd known it, he'd walked quite a long ways when all of a sudden, out from behind a big rock jumped two big, bad dogs. Boom! Ooh, Coyote leaped into the air and started running back in the direction he'd come from. Now, Coyote, he was a sprinter. He was way out ahead of those dogs. He was running down, thinking, now, let me see, where can I hide? Oh, I know. I cut off into the trees when I get to the forest. That's what I do. But before he could get to the forest, out from behind another big rock jumped two more big, bad dogs. Boom! Whoa! Coyote leaped into the air and started running back toward the first two big dogs. Four big dogs, Coyote in the middle going, what do I do? What do I do? Where do I go? And at that, Coyote cut across the valley, running as hard and fast as he could. But now he was getting tired. And those dogs, they were getting closer. They were now arguing over who was going to catch him first. And he could hear them. I'm going to get him. No, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. No, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. And Coyote just kept grabbing the earth and pulling as hard as he could, kicking dirt in those dogs' faces, running around the rocks, leaping over the cactus, trying to get away from the dogs who were getting closer and closer. Pretty soon, Coyote's legs felt like cooked spaghetti. He could hardly walk, but he's grabbing the earth and pulling when he looked up and noticed a little black circle halfway up the mountainside. Oh, maybe that's a cave. Maybe that cave is too small for those big dogs. I have to try. And at that, Coyote started running toward that little black circle. As hard as he could, he grabbed the earth. It felt like he was just running 2 steps forward and 1 long slide back. But he finally just about reached the opening when one of those dogs snatched a few hairs from his tail and Coyote slid into that cave. He lay in the cool dust of that cave, and then he heard it. That meant that opening was too small for those big dogs. Oh, Coyote got up, started to dust himself off, and he went, I'm pretty good. I get away from these big dogs. And at that, Coyote looked around and he was in a big, beautiful cave. And he felt like bragging, but there was nobody there to brag to. And that's when he decided he could brag to various parts of his body. Hey, Paws, what did you do to save us from these dogs? And his boss, they answered, yeah, they did. They said, oh, what did we do? Well, we ran very fast. We grabbed the earth. We kicked dirt in those dogs' faces so you could get here safe. Oh, yes, bueno. We are so good. And at that, Coyote started to dance. And he said, hey, orejas, ears, what did you do to save us from these dogs? And his ears, they said, oh, what did we do? Well, we listened very hard. We hear how far these dogs are behind you. We say, patas, andale, andale, hurry up, so you could get to this cave safe. Oh, yes, bueno. Muy bueno. We are so good. And at that, Coyote started to dance even more. He said, hey, ojos, eyes, what did you do to save us from these dogs? And his eyes said, oh, what did we do? Well, we stay very wide open in those big clouds of dust so that you can see where you are going. We see that cactus so you can leap over and not get those sticky things in you. Oh, and we see that little black circle halfway up the mountainside, which was this cave, so you could get here safe. Oh, yeah. Oh, bueno, we are so good. And that coyote reached over to pat himself on his back when he saw cola, tail. What did you do to save us from these dogs? And his tail did not answer because his tail could tell by his tone of voice that he was not too pleased. Hey, I say, cola, what did you do to save us from these dogs? And his tail finally said, what did I do? Oh, let me think. I wave my white tip in those big clouds of dust so these dogs, they can tell where you are. Oh, yeah. And I even let one of these dogs snatch a few hairs from me before you get into this cave safe. Yes, you did. You are so bad, you do not belong in here with us. No, you get out, get out. And at that, Senor Coyote started to back up toward the entrance of that cave. Now, those 4 big dogs were not stupid. They saw the coyote go in, and they knew he had to come out. So there they lay, quietly, patiently, waiting, when all of a sudden, out before their eyes came this great big bushy coyote tail. They grabbed that tail, they yanked that coyote out of that cave. And oh, what they did to that coyote, well, what they did to that coyote is another story.
Oh, Elaine, that's wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Such a great telling. Oh.
I hope she enjoyed the story.
What happened to the coyote?
She's not gonna tell.
The coyote's like a desert dog. But
No, like when the dog got the coyote.
what do you think happened? Maybe you need to figure out what the
They
next part
ate them?
is. Oh, I hope not. Oh,
I did not know.
well, you get to finish the story. You'll have to think about it. Maybe
Think about it yourself.
maybe you'll come up with your own story now.
That'd be good, huh?
Me and Grandma are working on a story.
Well, there you go. You never know where the next story might come from
Yeah,
the 2 of you.
that would be good.
I'd love to hear the next chapter in that story.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you. Thanks for asking, Sharon.
I think there was a moral to the story about accepting all of the parts of ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was a really interesting story that I never heard.
Well, there's thousands of more stories out there. They're flowing in the wind to sit on a hillside. And maybe a
Did you
story.
know that my grandma's great grandma Yuri, she actually, my grandma's working on it.
Great.
We're working on it.
Sounds good. Good. I look forward to it.
Great storytelling, Elaine.
Oh, thank you.
On demand. I mean, just like that. I was amazed
Yeah.
how well you knew all the details of your story. You know,
I hope so. It's my
Great job.
story.
you are a fine teller,
Yeah.
It's a great teller.
one of the best.
That's why I asked you to tell it.
Well, it's been a fine evening of stories. Did you tell a story yourself?
I'm sorry, no, I did not.
No.
This is we're ending stories early tonight. Usually they go a lot longer, you know.
That's because
Yeah.
somebody else isn't telling like you.
Random story.
Oh,
Yeah, unless we could
True.
talk into telling.
Oh. We can,
Do you want to see if
we
you
could stop the recording and we could just chat if you like, or does somebody have a story?
I have a short story.
Okay, Pete,
Good.
Let
Yeah,
me find you.
Pete's got one, and I bet Vicky.
entirely different from
We could
everything you've heard in the last hour.
Let's hear your story.
Okay, this is very different, and this is a short and more current than the story I told earlier tonight. So this happened not too long ago, and we decided to have our neighbors come over to have just an impromptu get together for dinner one night. And our favorite way to do that is with taco stands. You know, if you do tacos, you can have everything, and everybody enjoys that, and it's easy. And so my wife and I always use there's an authentic Mexican restaurant that's about 2 miles from here. And it's an authentic where everybody you can see in that grocery store is usually Hispanic. And so we drove down there. It's a really kind of seedy town. It's really close to the highway, and it's the grocery store is really kind of jammed in. There's doors here and windows. It's really hard to get in there, and the parking was really hard, and it was always hard to find a place to park. So we finally found a way. We got in and parked our car and drove in the front of the grocery store. And then we bought all the things we needed and jumped back in the car because we were kind of in a hurry. And so I jumped back in the car, turned it on, and put the car in reverse. And just as soon as I did, you know, I saw somebody on the other side of me turn their reverse lights on. So I said, oh, okay, so we're both going to back up at the same time. You know, that happens to us often at the grocery store. So I just stopped and be polite. And so I put my car in stop. And that driver was polite as well. They did the same thing. So they took their light off. And so I said, okay, well then I'll go this time then. So I put it in reverse. My light came back on again, but theirs did too. And I said, geez, now this is being too polite here. We got to get this solved. And so now I'm really starting to get mad. I got to get home. And so I put the car in park, and this time I put it in reverse, and I'm angry. So I guess a kind of road rage going here. So I put this thing in reverse, and I look back, and I see the guy's put on his light again. And finally, I realized what I'm looking at is the reflection of my reverse light in the glass in front of me. It's my own light I'm looking at. So I was like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I was looking at my own reverse lights on the glass in front of me. So boy, that shows you.
It shows you're just only human, Pete.
Right.
And I was really angry. I mean, you can see it happening.
Can you?
And I really believed it.
You
And
sound like
then I
another.
said, oh, how could you do that? So that's my little short
That's
story.
Funny.
Lovely.
That sounds like the coyote. The coyote would have done something like that if you drove
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So-
That's right.
coyote
We had a
story.
good taco bar though.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's delicious. Oh, great.
You went home to a fine taco dinner. with your
Yeah, it's
neighbor.
great. All the food is
Unlike
authentic
the
and carne
coyote,
asada.
who-
Woo!
I don't think that coyote did the same thing. So
You know, I
His
actually
fate was
told
much worse.
the people that work the counter when you go out, there's just one counter that you check out. It's all crouched in there. And so I told this lady that works there, I said, let me tell you what just happened. And I told her, and she said, oh. So she said she's told all kinds of their customers and their crew that work there, because this is a very busy place there. So now they're all having a big joke on my story.
Oh, that's cool.
very fun. Yeah.
Oh, well, I think we're pretty much, are we complete, do you think? Except for the apple pie or Vina's pie.
Yeah, did Vina invite us over?
Tacos.
Can I just say that I'm new at going to these swaps like this, and I was just really touched with what I saw today, the stories and how one interchanged with another, and you tell these stories nowhere, and then the granddaughter gets involved, and it's just like the richness,
Right.
just really is very touching. So I'm a new boy there, and but I really am touched by all that you're doing there.
Well,
Well,
Pete,
you're very welcome. We're really glad to have you, Pete.
Thank you, thank you,
And
thank
Kate,
you.
you've been here quite a few times, so you are becoming a regular. So you are one of us, and you tell
Well, thank you.
very
Yeah, I
beautiful
enjoy it. I enjoy it.
personal stories. And so through your stories, we're getting to know you, and you're so welcome here, like Mick said.
Yeah, I've got some more. You know, I love to do the personal stories, so I've got more that I got to start working on. So be
Yeah.
prepared.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
You gotta tell them the family so they know your stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I got success. I talking to grandchildren. I've been trying to talk to stories about my grandchildren and their family here in Encinitas, and I told them stories, and no one ever listened, until one night I was trying to do a pitch, you know, the 2-minute pitch to Moth to try to get one of my stories in a pod. So you have to make them a 2-minute thing. So instead of going on with my 8-minute story, I boil this thing, as you know, how hard it is to get to 2 minutes. So I'm sitting at the kitchen table and I start telling this story in a 2-minute version, and my grandson starts listening, and then his mom, and then the dad, and then the mom got so excited about me telling this short story. First time in her life, I saw her to tell her children trying to come in from the backyard, wait a minute, don't interrupt us right now. It's like, oh my God, you know, I really made it to the
Wow.
center there. So now I do have them, and they want to record my stories, and so it's just been a wonderful success that is paying off in a major way.
Oh, lovely.
Great.
Great.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's going to be a great treasure for him for sure. I know that, because my mom, she left a few stories for us too. And I know that and my dad, it turns out, was a great storyteller too. He wrote his down, and that really helped me to understand what his life was like back in those days, you know. It's just fascinating to begin to imagine what your parents or your grandparents, how they lived, and they lived so differently from us. It's just I think it's a treasure that we really need to try to somehow keep going, and you know, so that our great grandchildren one of these days know what life was like back, you know, on the Santa Ritas, you know, in 1930. I think that's just a wonderful legacy. Keep it
Yeah, it
going.
really is. I'll quit talking, but my son, at around that table that night, he heard one of my stories. He went to a big executive conference where there was 125 people in this big room, and I guess some may have been to these places. So all these 125 people there have, well, I think 45 seconds to say something about themselves, to just, you know, to distinguish from everybody else. And my son took from some of my story about one of my stories, and he told the story, and it was a huge hit. I mean, it makes a huge mark on all the kids. Like, man, you just don't know how it's all going to pay off for you. I'll tell you guys that story. You haven't heard that one.
Good. Well, I do have to run, so I'm going
All
to
right,
say
thank
good
you
night.
all.
okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you all for coming. Really wonderful to see everybody again this month, and we want to see you next month. So second Tuesday, we'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for the story,
Thank you,
man. Really,
everyone.
that was a great story about being the kids and the outdoors. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all for all
Everybody,
your
thank you
stories.
everybody for making
Yeah.
these stories. Thank you. I'm going to try to tell one some next time.
Do that. That would be
Thank-
great.
Thanks, Jane.
Yeah, and thanks, Katie, for making it all work.
Yes,
I try my
Katie,
best.
you're the one with the mostest. Gosh.
Well,
Yes.
August, we have Brandon back. Woo-hoo.
Oh, that'll be nice.
So I'm going to actually stop the recording.
Okay.
Okay.
Stop.